What's poppin', everybody? It's Overthrow Media, your best place for politics, hip-hop, and life. This is Big Villainous, your comrade revolutionary, dope-ass MC, and international sex symbol. Yeah, we doing it from the car for the next couple weeks. I'm sorry, y'all, but it is what it is. Might be out and about a little bit, but, we on the move trying to make things happen. You know what I'm saying? Today we're about to talk about mutual aid and what it can really look like. I actually went and chopped it up with some folks down here to do free grocery store, and we're going to cover that when we come right back.
Shifting sands like chronos, holding morbid golden. I see ghosts, just ghosts. Tipping hands of man-made molding moldy corpses. I see ghosts, just ghosts.
Alright, what's poppin'? Okay, so the real issues that people are dealing with don't stop because COVID is here. In fact, it gets worse. The free grocery store supplies food to over 300 individuals that they support through Gainesville.
Free grocery has been up and running for about 2 years, or at least in the current capacity, about 2 years. Before COVID, we operated a little bit differently. But once COVID started kicking off, we started doing deliveries and doing everything we're doing now. People need food, and food is a basic human need. People should have access to food, free food, good, sustainable, healthy food. And there just wasn't really an outlet for that, like any org that was providing that here. And especially during COVID, when we started kicking off, people had a hard time leaving their houses and, lost their jobs, had hardships due to COVID, and that was around the time that people needed it most.
So free grocery store was something that predates me a little bit. Free grocery store has been this thing that existed at the Civic Media Center for a time before the pandemic. It was completely different. It was pickup only, and it was just getting food based. It was food recovery happening at the CMC basically. During the pandemic, there was kind of like this immediate recognition that people needed to get food, and people were just gonna lose a lot of access to food. So free grocery store exploded. It kind of structured itself to be more accessible. So that's when we, instead of just doing pickup, we switched to a delivery model. We were taking in way more food too. We got way more food donations. We got a bunch of monetary donations, and people were just donating their labor, right? A lot of people were starting to work from home. Pandemic was just starting. Stuff was getting canceled. This was early 2020. People had this fire, and they needed an outlet for it. And we definitely got lucky that people in the community really showed up. Had people businesses give us lots of food that wasn't even going to go bad, just offering extras. We made partnerships with farms. We still to this day get food from farms. We built relationships with other organizations. We work with a local labor coalition, Dream Defenders, the Civic Media Center, and a lot of organizations that run through that. Went from being really a ragtag group of mostly former college students that still live in Gainesville, trying to figure out how we were gonna keep this going, into a more, I don't want to call it established, but we are definitely a more serious organization than we've been in the past. We have we've been adding people. We have almost 300 people that we deliver to, 300 families that we deliver to on a weekly basis. So it's been bi-weekly basis. It's been a tremendous increase in both how much we're able to offer the community, and also how much we've learned about the community, how much we've learned about organizing this capacity. A lot of that is volunteers can be hard to come by. So last summer we just were not getting enough people to fill the slots. There was a lot of, we were definitely in a period of retreat as an organization. We were not taking in a lot of money. We're not offering food in a productive way. So there's some harm happening within the organization. And one of the things that has kind of kept us going is the fact that we're able to mold from those situations, adapt, restructure, fix a lot of the issues that we're having, but also really get through it. I am part of this team of very dedicated organizers who put in hours of unpaid labor into this organization that is providing over 100 people with food, and like sometimes the only thing that like keeps us going is like I will get a Facebook message from someone telling us like they're the only reasons that like they're able to have fresh vegetables, right? Like interacting with the customers, even if sometimes it's just like knocking on somebody's door and dropping off groceries. But there'll be times where like people will like have full-on conversations. When we phone bank, we end up having really intimate conversations with like our recipients, just because we're one of the few places, if not one of the only places, that just has been offering food without any questions, right? Like a model early for free grocery stores that like everything's free, right? Like everything's free. Like there's no waiver that you have to sign. There's no form that you have to fill, other than like we have a waitlist form and like a form just so we know that you need help. But like we've never asked any like screening questions. We've never asked, you know, like we have like a certain radius that we deliver to, but the radius is basically all of Gainesville. Like we go to every corner of Gainesville. And we've shown up at events with tables and just offered free food. Like we've just like from that mantra of food should be free, of like redistributing kind of like these means of food production back to the community, the giving the members of the community access to free food that should be theirs to begin with. We're able to show up in all these different ways. So
No, we're saying I was like, no, I feel that food should be free. I actually had this one random Twitter post I just posted that was like, with a society, a world that we live in now, with such a food abundance, it should be criminal to sell food.
It should be criminal, but it's criminal to take food from the garbage, right? Like,
as we saw from heading over there to their operations, they're putting a lot of work with a lot of volunteers to be able to maintain it. So if you're in Gainesville or around Gainesville and want to support, I know they said they need more drivers still, so go ahead and head down to the Civic Media Center on Tuesdays and maybe talk to some of the organizers there, man. Or I'll see if I can put some of their contact info in the description down below. One thing I gotta say, it's not just inspiring to have people out there investing in their community, but it gives a roadmap for others. You can see a lot of how they make these things happen so you can step forward and do it in your own community. Because mutual aid isn't just here and there, it's needed everywhere, especially in cities, especially in places that are also rural and don't have a lot of resources. We need mutual aid in every single place possible, except for, you know, maybe where Bill Gates lives. Fuck him. He can starve. Besides that, we gotta actually show up for our people in our communities. If we're not doing that, then are we even really revolutionaries? And what are we really trying to build if we cannot support our communities through the struggles and through the plays? Because we got to be able to give an alternative to the system, to the state. Otherwise, they're going to rely on the state. I know we're talking about other than dialectic about the people, right? But to be able to build up the people, you have to build rapport and show solidarity first. You must show up for those who struggle and be able to show that you can replace the system. The reason people have false consciousness that is pro the system is because the system is what's allowing them to continue to live, to continue to eat. And if we don't replace those situations, we don't replace it with our own mutual aid, with our own ability to grow, harvest, and share food, resources, water, so on and so forth, then how are we going to win the people over to the point that they will actually divest from the system? You know what I mean? Anyways, make sure to hit that like button, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell to stay notified. Leave a comment down of what you think you could do in your community and what type of programs you think your community may need and how we're gonna make that happen. Also, if you have a few bucks, want to support a starving artist that's struggling out here trying to make a change in the world with the Fight Toxic Prisoners crew, you can support me on Patreon at Villains_Music, as well as you can find me at all socials. Not only is it Patreon Villains_Music, also on Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, SoundCloud, Bandcamp, etc. So yeah, make sure to show some love. All right, we out of here. Deuces. Good rocking with you. Peace.
Walking through the crease and the cracks of the streets, struggling for some food and a bed to sleep, while trying to cause overthrow. I'm feeling weak, ideology buff.
I think with the Revolution organization, we don't necessarily have to cover all the components though.
yeah.
I think the revolutionary organization's job is to be able to, or revolutionary job, but at a organization's job is to be able to find and meet each other's networks
and be able to network them together to be able to build it, because it might not be like one organization does it, but like being able to have connections so you can like get people who need support to where supporting people who need to support something, get them to where they need to be as well. You feel me? And then I do think y'all are mutual aid, because mutual aid can be one community supporting their neighboring community too. It doesn't have to be like you're necessarily always a part of that community, because I feel like there's internal mutual aid and there's mutual aid as like people and different communities around. Because I think it's really important for communities to make other communities that they're friends with, but not necessarily the same community. You know what I'm saying? And like build that and support each other. And I think that's what y'all doing, right? So it's like, and I'm sure like it's always strange because we live in a society where we have to rebuild community, right? Because we watch community intentionally, systematically destroyed by the U.S. government to be able to keep us like apart, if not able to support each other, because they saw a threat that is the community. You see through the 60s and the Panthers and so on. So they saw the threat that is community. And so we're having to rebuild from almost scratch. And then there are some long-standing communities, but they're becoming less and less, right? They're becoming pushed down in different directions. Like where I'm from, Seattle, like everybody was gentrified and pushed out everywhere and scattered all across the country, everywhere, so nobody's connected anymore. So community doesn't exist with a lot of people. But so I think that was. So I think it's really important that we're adapting to the circumstances that we are in, and which y'all are definitely doing.
Yeah, I mean I'm happy to hear all that, because like we are like working in in this organization. It's hard to really get that like outside of perspective. And like I 100% agree. Like I do think like communities helping other communities. Like well, I never thought about it before as mutual aid, which it absolutely is. It's like very revolutionary in itself, right? Like just thinking about like Huey P. Newton's like intercommunalism, like the idea of revolutionary intercommunalism being communities forming these relationships with other communities, and like revolutionary communities, right? Revolutionary like communities that represent people, their need, and like this advancement from capitalism, like helping out one another, right? And I'm not saying like, oh yeah, free grocery store is going to deliver that, but like the idea of this connection between communities, I think is very important, because right, like adapting to our current conditions, like in Gainesville, like you said, like a lot of people, a lot of communities might still be there, but they're definitely on the decline. Like most like communities that haven't already been destroyed, I think specifically in Florida too, like you have in Gainesville, you have like historic Black communities like Borders, you have Pleasant Street, you have like Sugar Hill, like you have these communities that have these, you know, like histories. They contain this knowledge. Like they used to have all this land, like to get material of it. Like they used to have all this land, and you have this capitalist institution like the city, UF. I think it's a very big like colonial force on the city, like trying to divide it up and move people out, right?
So this is the part where I try to shout out my Patreons who've been supporting me. You know what I mean? Supporting Tum Tum down here and also the gas tank. So, yeah. Now you should be reading all those names. Memorize those names. If you ain't memorized those names, you're not a real revolutionary. Okay, maybe you are, but still, no. Memorize those motherfucking names. Also, if you want to join those names and feed Tum Tum, yeah, go ahead and have her do my Patreon. All right. Catch y'all later. Make sure to fight back against the system and the state. You know what I mean? Don't just sit there. Don't just sit there by the television or the computer or any of that shit. Go out and turn up. I said turn up.